hadn't been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
State of the Wolves Monday here, and the vibe check, I'm guessing, on the roller coaster from week to week is going to be a little more positive than a week ago, which seems to be the trend this season. So we'll dive into the different State of the Wolves categories. Phil Mackey, sports dad Judd Zulgad, executive producer Declan Goff here. Before we get into it, right across the street from Target Center, and a partner of ours here on Flagrant Howls, is a great little Irish pub called Kieran's, Dex.
That's right. Great little spot just right across the street, steps away from the Target Center. They got some great taps. They have great pub food. I'll actually be at the Wolves game tonight against the Hawks. Very much looking forward to being at my first game at Target Center this season. Go stop into Kieran's pregame, postgame. It'll be a blast. Vinny is even super excited about it as well.
Dude.
Go to Kieran's, just steps away from Target Field, or Target Center and Target Field.
Yeah, it's both. It's great. Little double,
the bar. Come on,
double
Dad.
dip. Also, Federated Insurance here partnering with Flagrant Howls this season, and they'll partner with you if you're a business owner to give you peace of mind. They stay focused on safety, preventing claims, and risk management so you can stay focused on growing your business. Federated Mutual Insurance Company, go to federatedinsurance.com to find out more about the industries that they specialize in, and just to find out about the history, 100 plus years, this great company, federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. So I got this snazzy new little screen behind me. I switched views 90 degrees in my office. Let's go to something more appropriate for Flagrant Howls here. How about a picture of... There we go. There's a Wolves one right there.
KG and Rubio.
Doesn't that make you nostalgic?
The dome being collapsed.
KG and Rubio hanging
The
out.
dome being collapsed is outstanding.
Yeah, we're kind of... What was that, December? Yeah, it was like early December. 2011 or 10? 2010.
2010.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Dex is going to lead us through the first part of this, the overview, and then we'll get to the category. So what do we got here?
All right, so here's your State of the Wolves here. So right now the Wolves 24-21 on the season. They're up to 7th in the Western Conference. They're 2 games back of the top 6 in the West. They have climbed up to 14th in offensive rating. That has climbed up about 4 or 5 spots. We didn't do a State of the Wolves last week, but since the last time we've done State of the Wolves, I believe they were 18th, 19th, so they have climbed up to the top half of the league in offensive rating. In defensive rating, they are now 7th in the NBA. According to ESPN.com, they have about a coin flip chance of being in the playoffs, 51.5%. But on Basketball Reference, it's as high as 87%. So Basketball Reference still much more bullish on the Timberwolves playoff odds as against ESPN's. And the Larry O'Brien trophy odds have gone up. According to ESPN, it's 0.2% now. And according to Basketball Reference, it's 0.4%. So there has been a little bit of an uptick, too, in the NBA title odds.
You're telling me there's a
for the
chance.
Timberwolves. They got that going for us. Yes, big time. And if the playoffs started today, the Timberwolves would host the Suns in a play-in situation. So that's your that's kind of your overview and your State of the Wolves. What are the Wolves vibes right now? Wolves vibes are blank. Who wants to start us off?
Joe, you were at Target Center
I was.
a few nights ago, right? Tell us.
Yes, for the rout of Denver. Absolute destruction. Which leads me to say that the Wolves' vibes, to be as fair as possible, are a work in progress. Because we're talking about a team, to what Phil talked about off the top of the show. They have 4 winning streaks of 3 or 4 games this season. They have 4 losing streaks of 3 or more games so far. They've won. They've now won 2 in a row. That comes after they lost 3 of 4. You get my drift? It's been a little bit up and down, but I really feel like as they I don't know, mix things up, as they find combinations, that as frustrating as the season has been, and there's no question it's been incredibly frustrating, that the Wolves vibes are very much a work in progress. And by the way, I don't think that the changes are done yet. I still think that there is a chance, despite the fact it's being shot down constantly, that Julius Randle gets traded by the deadline. I think there is still a chance that certain guys get more playing time. Certain guys get less playing time. So Mix and match, work in progress is my vibe check.
I would say that Wolves vibes are way better than the Wolves fatalists have wanted you to think these last 2 or 3 months. Like, there's definitely been some body language stuff, and there's been some working things out, even through the media, and there's been some consternation. But at the end of the day, you watched that game against Denver. I mean, you were in the arena. I was watching on TV, and they are absolutely destroying a healthy, fully stocked Nuggets team that's been on a roll lately.
Yep.
I mean, they're just like, oh, they're up by 10. They're up by 15. Are the Nuggets going to make a run? Nope, now it's 20. Oh, now it's garbage time. And Luka Garza's in the game in the last handful of minutes. They just throttled them. And Anthony Edwards is over there waving a towel. And Joe Ingles who's on the Mount Rushmore of Timberwolves towel wavers. Like, they're having a good time. Julius Randle still has some Julius Randle moments, but he has actually integrated a lot better lately. And I have a couple other things on specific players that we'll get to in the other categories, but the Wolves emerged after a rough start to this 6-game stretch. But when they went in like a week and a half ago to the 6-game stretch starting January 15th, so they beat Washington, and then you look at the calendar and you're like, oh boy, you got Golden State at home, at the Knicks. Now that turned out to be a catless game. Of course, you've been without Dante DiVincenzo this whole time too. So, boy, if they can just finish 500 even, just get through that stretch. Don't go 1-5. Don't go 0-6, right? Without Dante DiVincenzo. Rocky early, but they wind up closing out. You go at Dallas, and then you beat Denver at home. You finish 3-3, and looky here. You're back to 24-21. You're sitting in the 7th seed, as Declan went over, and you're only 2 games out of the 5th seed in the Western Conference with a bunch of winnable games coming up here, too. I don't want to give them guaranteed wins because this team can find a way to be down by 8 points to anyone. But
yes,
but home against Atlanta, favored, at a Phoenix team that's trying to figure it out still. Then you literally have tanking teams: Utah, Washington, Sacramento is much different than they were before they fired coach. Bulls, Houston's tough, but you got Portland coming up. So you have now there's a stretch in February where you get Oklahoma City 3 times in 4 games. But you've got some Utahs, Washingtons, Portlands, Atlantas on your schedule here. This could be the time that you finally get over past that 3 games over 500, get it to 5, get it to 6 games over 500, and maybe you're sitting there in the 5 seed in the Western Conference here in the next couple weeks. So for all the panicking and freaking out, dude, Dillingham is showing up here too, not just for this year, but he looks like, okay, that dude's going to score here for a number of years next to Anthony Edwards.
Yep.
So, okay, maybe they aren't quite, maybe it's not a linear step forward, but you can kind of see, all right, there's some really positive things here and some potential flexibility on the horizon. And even as they try to figure this out, they might be the 5 seed in 2 weeks if they beat the teams they're supposed to.
What we saw on Saturday has to be from engagement has to be replicated a lot. And that does not mean that you're going to win every game by 25 points. But like what frustrated me was that performance was an indictment in some ways of how they've approached teams, including like the Portlands, right? So like that's the thing I keep going back to is this is a good team. Like this team has talent. But what they have not done is if every time they've won 3, it's like, okay, now deep breath, we lose 3 or 4. So what I want to see is I want to see the level of engagement that we saw on Saturday afternoon against Denver consistently now, because if they do that, they are not going to be a play-in team.
Yeah, it's some of it is like, and we'll get, there's one in particular that's going to be my current favorite thing, but Dex, vibe check to Dex first.
Yeah, vibes are still trending in the right direction. Like they're improving. I mean, when you look at what they've done basically since the beginning of January, they've won 7 of their last 11 games. They're playing a lot better. I still have some qualms, and I'll get into my least favorite things. But in general, it just feels like things are slowly coming together for them now. Now, I know it was rocky, and they haven't yet to really cross over the 3 games above 500 mark. They've basically been at 500 or 3 games above it. They haven't gone past that yet. But they have a chance here with some shakier opponents, and I think going into the All-Star break, like if they can rattle off a bunch more wins here, I think we're going to feel a lot better. And then we'll also know at the trade deadline. So it feels like we're getting not to the peak, but we're maybe out of the woods, to borrow a phrase from Taylor Swift. I think the Timberwolves teams are out of the woods right now and trending in the right direction.
Okay, favorite current Wolves thing. Start with Judd.
One guy, Dilly.
Dilly.
Dillingham, I understand. I'll preface this by saying I get it. He's a rookie. He's not polished. He's not consistent. He does things that probably drive Chris Finch nuts, but you know what he does? He brings an energy. Like when they turn him loose and say, okay, dude, go play. It becomes very evident why Tim Connelly traded up to the 8th pick to take him. Mm-hmm. This kid has a spark. He came off the bench in the first half on Saturday. In 7 minutes of action, he scored 10 points. He hit 4 or 5 from the floor. He hit 2 of 2 from 3-point range. Dilly is my favorite thing, and Dilly Bar deserves to play more. And I love what he brings. He just brings a youthful, natural spark, and most importantly, he backs it up as well. Like he's not a mess. So I'm not suggesting that he should like play the entire game or something. I'm not going crazy here, but I am saying I think you should seriously consider, with Dante out, starting him. And I do think that you cannot put a price on what he brings to a team that throughout the very frustrating first portion of the season, in my opinion at times, looked like they lacked the one thing that he brings, which is a massive enthusiasm.
He should 100% start.
Yeah.
And I know that Finch's pushback would be, well, right now Conley is, despite Conley's drop-off, is still the more trustworthy, complete
Correct.
player, and he understands what we're doing, and he's been in the league for 40 years, whatever. Like I get all those things, but you should be thinking not just about the next 3 months and this season. You should allow the Anthony Edwards, Rob Dillingham partnership to blossom more. And he's getting his minutes a little bit more now. And there was even, I think it was against the Nuggets, right, where both him and Josh Minott at the same time were in the rotation.
And the building
crazy.
Didn't
No,
the roof
building
didn't cave in.
In fact, I think you won that game by 30.
Yeah.
So it's hopefully it's showing Chris Finch that he's not going to be perfect. Neither one of these guys, but specifically Dillingham, you're going to have to hide him on defense a little bit. And yeah, there's going to be some teams that look to just hunt him and maybe run him out of the gym defensively. But I would really prioritize the Edwards-Dillingham partnership as something to carve space for here developmentally the rest of the season. Another thing, my favorite current Wolves thing, Dillingham was going to be number 1. I'm glad Judd took it. So I'll go to number 2 here. If you've noticed, Jaden McDaniels has come alive here. Now, defensively, there's always a presence lurking there. But it's almost like a light bulb went off, and I don't know if it was his own doing or if it's a coaching. It seemed like they were just hanging him out to dry in the corner. Just, all right, man, so your job on offense is to stand there and wait for open corner threes, and he was kind of embarrassing himself. He's not a good three-point shooter. He's a below-average three-point shooter, but he shoots like 4 a game because the system kind of dictates that, A, you got to shoot threes. The league dictates you got to shoot threes. And oftentimes when you've got Anthony Edwards coming off screen and roll, someone comes to help, right? Well, who's wide open in the corner? It's Jaden. But he's shooting like 29% on corner threes. And so at some point, dude, he's got a bag of he's got a floater. He's got a mid-range game. He can get to the rack. He can rebound more than he's shown in his career. And by golly, if you look at his last 8 games, he's averaging 15 points a game, 7.5 rebounds. He's crashing the boards on offense. He's not just settling for threes in the corner. He's taking the ball, dribbling into the paint, even making plays for teammates at times. So if you're getting, like, this is the version of Jaden McDaniels that we've all kind of dreamed about. He's not like a 30 points per game guy, but can he regularly give you double digits, closer to 15 than 10, and maybe once a week if a team is not giving him enough attention, can he drop 20 or 27 on your head? And that game against Dallas, man, that's one of the 3 best games he's played in his career. He's out there for 40 minutes, And I know Luka wasn't out there, and that was the biggest, like in the Western Conference Finals, and no one had an answer for Luka. But to drop 27, the rebounds are the biggest thing. Like 7, 8 rebounds a game should not be unrealistic for him. And he has now grabbed, in his last 9 games, 8, 6, 8, 4, 8, 5, 12, 8, 8. So 8 or more rebounds in most of the games. That's like a team changer, a trajectory changer if this is what you're getting from him. Maybe it's just a spurt, but you hope that it's not.
The thing that I saw against Denver on Saturday from him and a bunch of guys too is the activity was so high. Like, it feels like they get in trouble when they literally stand around. Everyone just sort of stands around. And the activity in that game Saturday was so constant. And Jaden then moves. Like, I think the most important thing is to get Jaden so he's not thinking and he's just playing. And when you go stand in the corner and wait for the ball, you're thinking. And I think he is a guy who thrives on athletic ability, which means you got to move. So I don't think there's any secret when the Wolves are playing well, what they look like and when they're not.
Yep.
And I think it's activity and engagement. In the case of Gobert, it's engagement. Like, if he literally doesn't feel like he's part of the whole thing, it impacts every portion of his game.
Yep.
It shouldn't, but it does.
And sometimes, basketball can get really complicated sometimes with the different sets. You're trying to counter what the defense is doing. And
Sure.
But it's also really simple in some other ways, in that Jaden McDaniels over the last 2 years is shooting 33% from 3-point range, which is way below league average. So when you ask him to shoot a 3, he shoots 33% on 3-pointers, including, I verified it, 29% on corner threes this year. But when he gets to the rim, he shoots 70%. When he gets inside 10 feet, it's career 44%, over 40% this year. And when he gets to the 10 to 16, kind of in the lane, that like floater, close mid-range game, he shoots 55% from that range because he's lanky, and oftentimes he's getting in on players who are guarding him that might be smaller too. So if you can just let's move off he's gonna have to shoot some threes. It can't be 0.
Yep.
But if you can move off that a little bit, and more importantly, get him more locked in and engaged and getting within 10 to 16 feet and closer, he can score a lot more points. So and I don't think you're winning some of these games without that offensive version. You're certainly not beating the Nuggets the way that you did without that version of Jaden McDaniels. You're not beating the Mavericks without that version of Jaden McDaniels. So just kind of a game changer.
Yeah, he was in my favorite category too, and there's an engagement factor too. Not even, obviously his stats look a lot better, which is good, but there just seems to be a lot more pep in his step when I've been able to watch him this last week too. And I think another thing that I'll use for the favorite things category is that the Wolves have basically the Nuggets number. They have now won 4 straight games, including playoffs, against the Denver Nuggets. And look, Denver is still at full strength, probably a powerhouse, and could obviously get to the NBA Finals again. But man, if we're going to get these type of games, I don't expect what happened Saturday to be the norm against Denver. Like, that was an awesome performance by the Wolves, but probably not the norm. But I will say, sign me up again for a Minnesota-Denver playoff series, which would be another absolute blast. There's a really good rivalry that I think has developed here too over the last few years. So my favorite thing, the Wolves obviously being the Nuggets 4 times in a row, it's become a great rivalry. And if the playoffs come, sign me up, man. It'll be an absolute blast if that happens again.
How are we ranking current Wolves rivalries? Or Nuggets? I think they're still number 1 because you've traded postseason wins.
Yep.
Dallas has to be.
Dallas is 2.
Right there, right?
Yep.
You know what? Oklahoma City is kind of budding. There's been some barbs traded over the years. They are just on fire. Dude, their average, their margin of victory, or not margin, their margin of game score, including the losses, is plus 12.5. So the average Oklahoma City game results in a 12.5 point win for the Thunder, which
what a crazy
is
season.
Insane. Okay, before we get to least favorite thing here, Judd, one of your favorite things is MSP plumbing and heating, especially this time of year. People need
exactly
help with
right.
plumbing and
Exactly
heating.
right. And why? Because this time of year where it is imperative that your house be safe and warm and toasty. And guess what? My friends at MSP Plumbing, Heating and Air, they are committed to making sure that your house is exactly all those things. For more than a century, families have relied on MSP for all of their plumbing, drains, heating, and cooling needs. As a 100% family owned and operated business, MSP committed to taking care of your family. Right now, get $50 off any HVAC or plumbing repair. Just give them a call, 651-615-4292, or check out their website, callmsp.com. Callmsp.com because they want to make sure that your house is operating efficiently. In fact, get ahead of problems if you sense any. Callmsp.com.
North American Banking Company also helping to power Flagrant Howls. Based in Minnesota, they are a Minnesota banking company since 1998. Locations currently in Maple Grove, Roseville, Shoreview, Hastings, Woodbury, 50th in France. In getting to know the team at North American Banking Company, I noticed a few things. Friendly, knowledgeable people. They took the time to learn about my life, family, what we envision for the future, the safety and security of our accounts. I've had a couple terrible experiences with specifically one national bank that shall go nameless here, and it was just kind of refreshing to see the I guess the reliance that NABC has on personal relationships and cutting edge online tools. Just a better banking experience. North American Banking Company, they'll make the transition very easy, whether you're just looking for a better banking experience, savings, checking, the basics, or something bigger, financing, setting up a new business. Go to nabankco.com/Mackey to learn more. That's nabankco.com/Mackey. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Okay, least favorite current Wolves thing, Judd.
It's probably the fact that I don't feel yet that Chris Finches has bought into certain rotations and certain players that are working, like the Conley thing, okay? And Mike Conley, look, we've bashed him. I have, but I understand it. He's important. I get that. But the Dillingham thing to me is so crystal clear. And yes, he's going to disappoint you at times. But the reality is this. The way that you're trending right now to me screams that a lot of the things that they have finally started to do a little bit are working. And so I guess my least favorite thing is Finch's reluctance is probably the best word here, to embrace that and to realize that if this team is going to have a chance to make a run, that the direction things are going right now is the way to embrace. So don't look for what's going or what you're afraid is going to go wrong. Embrace the youth, embrace the momentum, embrace the enthusiasm of what these guys can bring. So I just don't know if I feel that Finch is completely there yet. And the games when they do win are screaming to me, this is the right direction to go.
A couple things on Conley real quick. Number one, he actually has come around. He is on fire from the 3-point line over the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it took him 40 games, 35 games, but he's finally showing up in that regard. And also in fairness to Finch, his minutes are at an all-time career low this season. Conley, his first year in the league, 2007, and he has never played this few minutes per game. He's at 24 and a half minutes per game. It was 30 and a half when the Wolves traded for him back in 2022-23. So, the next step is, and they did this, they moved him out of the starting rotation and put DiVincenzo in.
It's to do it again.
The next step is Dillingham starting rotation. But again, I can't emphasize this enough. Dillingham is the future, and Dillingham is the fun, shiny toy, and higher end. He can come in and just rip off 10 points in 7 minutes. Conley is the better, more effective overall player right now for this team. So they're trying to balance the organizer that Conley is, and he's not the same player he was 2 years ago, but he's still a good, valuable player. So we'll see how that takes shape in the last 2 months of the season.
I just don't, if things start to go wrong, I don't want to see like Finch panic and say, okay, Mike, you go fix this. You're going to have to work through some things. If you're a top 10 draft pick, I think you deserve the opportunity to actually work through things at times. It's not like the guy was taken with the 25th pick. So,
yeah, that's fair. I think my least favorite thing is just the complete uncertainty leading up to the trade deadline in a week, week and a half, February 6th. Because on one hand, it would be really nice to have that flexibility in the summer and not have Julius Randle completely be able to dictate whether Naz Reid comes back. Like Naz Reid needs to be here for the next handful of years. I am convinced of that. And if Julius Randle has a player option hanging over the franchise's head, Naz Reid might just be like, I mean, listen, I know I love you guys, love the Naz Reid towels, but I got an open market here. I'm an unrestricted free agent. But then Julius Randle has also just he's put together some really solid games lately too, like the passing and the assists. He's had the Memphis game was a clunker for him and the Knicks return, but they wound up winning that game in blowout fashion. But it kind of feels like things have settled down a little bit with Julius for this year's team, where you're kind of curious to see how would this play out? I just don't know that long-term and roster-wise you can allow it to play out. But it would be just kind of a classic thing where just in time, like this thing is gelling and you're beating the brakes off Denver and you go on a run here and you're winning games. And now what if you have like a 5-game win streak, 6-game win streak or something, or 6 out of 7, and you're feeling great about this team. And then it's trade deadline time. And you've got these bigger long-term questions hanging over the roster. And you're sitting in the 5 seed. Like, there's a chance that they could literally be sitting in the 5 seed and have to unload a player that's starting to fit and gel. I know he's not a long-term piece, but they're in a really interesting spot.
It's a good point. I'd still trade him.
Yeah. And I know people are frustrated. There's nothing tangible. They keep... Dude, there's never been anything tangible leading up to a Tim Connolly trade. It's just gonna happen out of thin air, and you're gonna be like, "Whoa!"
To your point, though, last week, I don't think if we are going to talk about the Wolves, which we should beyond the 2024-25 season, I agree with your point last week, which is you cannot afford to have him opt in. Plus, then, if he opts in and doesn't have an extension, now he's in the last year. And I think he turned into the big mope. And so, it
would be the opposite, though. I mean, wouldn't you be trying to get yours in the last year?
I don't know, man. Some guys don't. Some guys do. There's a lot of wild cards there. So I get your point. I think I would still trade him.
I probably
Dex, what's your least favorite thing?
Yeah, least favorite thing is just the clunkiness of these fourth quarters. So I know yesterday, obviously, or on Saturday, they blew the brakes off the Nuggets, but against the Grizzlies, things got a little weird there. They had a 5-point lead with 4 minutes to go. They ended up losing the game. Yes, they beat the Mavericks, but they had, a 9-point lead with 90 seconds to go, and then all of a sudden Dallas makes it super interesting in the last minute. I know things get crazy, and clutch time situations can be a little weird, but I would like a little more, or a little less, I should say, of a sweat in these last few minutes of games for Wolves lately. They just are making it either difficult on themselves or they aren't closing out the game when they should be. I would just say fine-tuning some of those final clutch time minutes is a priority for them, even with them playing a lot better in the last few weeks of the season.
Yeah, if they could, with how much time they spend in clutch time, if they could become a good clutch time team, A, their record would be a lot better, but B, you'd feel great about some of these close playoff games, but shot selection, ball movement, it's like they'll build up these leads and then stop doing the things that the ball movement and the things that got them the lead. And it's like, number one, we got to bleed the shot clock down. And then number two, we need Anthony Edwards to take a step back 3 with 2 hands in his face. Like, okay, that's not how you built the lead in the first place. But yeah, man, 2 straight wins. 3 games over 500 again. The C's are a little calmer, and now you've got some games that you should be able to beat the teams you're supposed to beat for sure the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, so step up. Run with it. You've got your opportunity here. Get out of the play-in.
Sportsstat's challenging you right now.
Get out of the play-in. There's no look, you are too good. You are too talented. You are too special a team to be a play-in team. That's what, like, Saturday, you were watching a juggernaut. That's a hell of a game. Let's see it again.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Amen. All right. This is Flagrant Howls. We'll have our hottest Wolves takes. We'll have another exciting random Wolf of the week later this week. This is a Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.